book. Top of the day, beautiful people. Vinette, shalom, greetings, Ray. Hi, sis. Nasarai Yahoo 777. Top of the day. Lavon, hey, girl, hey. Ema, Grand Rising. Shebrew, hey, girl, hey. Hold on, y'all. I left my book. My spiel guide. Hold on. Elijah, get up. The clock going off. He's trying to wake everybody up. She's like, Aunt Pam, is it still early? I said, yes, ma'am, go back to sleep. She said, well, shouldn't I get the day started? I'm like, you should, but go back to sleep. Everybody else sleep. Don't wake all them up. And today, they get to sleep in because we got to leave shortly. So, all right, beautiful people. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. It is November the 4th, 2022, day 254 of year 4. I'm reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets under the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1273. Today we're picking back up on page 3 in Oahspe. And this little chapter is called The Voice of Man. And when we get done, we'll probably get through that and a little bit of, no, we'll probably just get through that today. Then next is the Book of Jehovah. Yeah, so we'll probably be right at time when we get done with this today, and then we'll hop over to the Field Spirit guide. So definitely can't go over today because we got to get out of here. And also need to make a correction, and I'll repeat it at the end. Saturdays, we cannot do at 7:30. I just realized it as of yesterday because classes start for me. And my only class day where I actually have to go into campus is Saturday mornings from 8:30 to 1:30. So since it's going to take me like 45 minutes to get there, I need to be leaving by 7:30. So Saturday mornings will also be from 6:15 to 7:15. Guys, I'm so sorry about that. I did not think about it when I was telling y'all that we was going to keep the time the same on Saturdays. So Sunday will be the only day where there's no holds bar, right? So, all right, y'all. So let's get started. Father, we thank you that you are completely unbiased in all things, right? Okay. All right, y'all. Who else came in? Tabitha. Hey, girl. Hey. Okay. Nazarene is singing. Shalom, shalom. All right, y'all. Page 3 in Oahspe. The Voice of Man. O Jehovah, what am I that I should supplicate thee? Know I mine own weakness, or understand I the way of my thoughts. Thou hast placed before me most wonderful creations. They impress me, and my senses rise up in remembrance of the Almighty, wherein I have invented one thought, but by looking upon thy works. How can I otherwise than remember my Creator? And out of thy creations, O Jehovah, find rich food for meditation all the days of my life. And yet, though I have appropriated the earth unto myself, I am not happy nor perfect withal. Misery and crime and selfishness are upon my people. What is my weakness that I cannot overcome it? Or what is my strength that I succumb to the desires of the earth? I build up my belief and courage in thee, but ere I know the way of my weakness, I stumble and fall. Am I made that I should be, am I made that I shall be forever a reproof to myself and a censure to my own behavior? How shall I say to this man or that, be thou pure and holy, O man? Are not my flesh and blood proof that man cannot be without sin? O this corruptible self, this tendency to fall from the right way, thou, O my Creator, hast proven before my senses every day of my life that thou alone art mighty in purity and truth. Oh, that I had a starting point wherefrom to estimate thy wonderful decrees, or could find a road in which I should never stumble. But yet, O Jehovah, I will not complain because of the way of thy works. Thou hast invented a limit to my understanding, whereby I am reminded of thee to call upon thy name. I perceive my own vanity, that whereas were knowledge mine, I should become less beholding unto thee. What am I, O Jehovah, without thee? Or wherein shall I find the glory of thy creations, but by the light of thy countenance? Thou bringest me forth out of sin and darkness, and clothe me in light. I behold the smallness of myself in thy great works. Thou hast bound me to travel on the earth, to sojourn with beasts and all manner of creeping things, nor given me one attribute wherein I can boast over them, save in the power of destruction. The high firmament place thou above me, the stars, moon, and sun. I know thou hast been thither, but I am bound down in a little corner of thy works. I have not power to raise up thy distant places, nor to know thy extended heavens. Nay, I have not power to shape my own size and stature, but all things take form and dimension, whether I will or no. In thine own way are built the walls of the world. By their magnitude am I confounded, by the majesty of thy hand appalled. Why have I vainly set up myself as the highest of thy works? My failures are worse than any other living creature under the sun. I cannot build my house in perfection like a bird's. My ingenuity cannot fashion a spider's net. I cannot sail up in the air like a bird, nor live in the water like a fish, nor dwell in harmony like the bee. The half of my offspring die in infancy. The multitude of my household are quarrelers, fighters, drunkards, and beggars. The best of my sons and daughters are less faithful than a dog. Oh my gosh. Let me read that sentence again. Sheesh. Listen. The half of my offspring die in infancy. The multitude of my household are quarrelers, fighters, drunkards, and beggars. The best of my sons and daughters are less faithful than a dog. I go forth to war to slay my brother, even whilst thy wide earth hath room for all. Yea, I curse the earth with starvation and sin and untimely death. Oh, that I could school myself to boast not of my greatness, that I should be forever ashamed in thy sight, Jehovah. Unto thee I will acknowledge my iniquities. I can hide nothing from the eyes of my Creator. Hear me then, O Father. And after unto thee I acknowledge my iniquities. After iniquities is reference letter 1, and 1 at the bottom says, but I will make a clean breast of my iniquities. All right, so I'm going to read the whole verse 8 again and keep going. Unto thee I will acknowledge my iniquities. I can hide nothing from the eye of my Creator. Hear me then, O my Father. Can y'all hear me? Global Purpose Grand Rising on YouTube. Can y'all hear me? My button. I just realized this button is missing. Okay, that's weird. I've never seen that before. Okay. That's odd. Okay. Verse 9, page 3. I took up arms against my brother. With great armies I encompassed him about to despoil him. His widows and orphans I multiplied by the stroke of my sword. The cry of anguish that came out of their mouths I answered by the destruction of my brother's harvest. To my captains and generals who showed great skill in killing, I built monuments in stone and iron. Yea, I inscribed them from top to bottom with their bloody victories. And in my vanity I called out to the young, saying, Behold the glory of great men. These great monuments I have builded to them. And the youth of my household were whetted with ambition for spoil. The example of my hand made them train themselves for warfare. My colonels and generals I gave badges of gold. I called to the damsels, saying, Come, a great honor I give to you. Ye shall dance with the officers of death. And they tripped up on tiptoe, elated by the honey of my words. O Jehovah, how have I not covered up my wickedness? How have I failed to make the flow of my brother's blood the relish of Satan? To my destroying hosts I have given great honor and glory. To the pretense of enforcing peace I hewed my way in flesh and blood. I made great pretensions in a kingdom. After kingdom is reference number 2, and at the bottom 2 says, I made an ingenious fatuous a kingdom. Go back up, verse 17, page 4. I made great pretensions in a kingdom. I called out to my people, saying, We must have a kingdom. I showed them no reason for it, but I bade them to take up arms and to follow me for patriotism's sake. And yet, what was patriotism? Behold, I made it as something greater than thee and thy commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Yea, by the cunning of my words, I taught them my brother was my enemy, that to fall upon him and his people and destroy them was great patriotism. And they ran at the sound of my voice for my glory and the greatness of my kingdom, and they committed great havoc. And after committed is reference number 3, and 3 at the bottom says accomplished. Yea, I have built colleges for training my young men in warfare. I drew a boundary hither and thither, saying, This is my kingdom, all others are my enemies. I flattered the young men with the work of death, and I said, Ye men of war, great shall be your glory. And after ye men of war, after war is reference number 4. And 4 says, I patted my young men on the head, saying, Ye dogs of war. D'jour shalom. What? Global Purpose said, wow, that sounds like the prayer of repentance the Prime Minister of Jamaica made during the start of C-19. Ooh, if you got it or a clip of it, share it so we can see if he reading Oahspe. Listen, okay. I read verse 21 again. I flattered the young men with the work of death. I said, Ye men of war, great shall be your glory. Oh, you're going to have to post the, because I don't think anybody else other than me or people with the wrenches can post the link. So you're going to have to post it in the comment section if you find it, Global Purpose. Please and thank you. Okay. Verse 22. And their judgment was turned away from peace. I made them think that righteousness was to stand up for me and my country and to destroy my brother and his people. They built me forts and castles and arsenals without number. I called unto my people, saying, Come, behold the glory of my defenses, which I built for you. And they gave me money and garrisons and ships of war and torpedoes, shouting, Hurrah for our kingdom. We have faith in these things more than in thee, our Creator. And after more than in thee, after than is reference number 5. 5 says things, but not in thee. Or it would be, we have faith in these things, but not in thee. I'll read the whole verse again now. Verse 24. And they gave me money and garrisons and ships of war and torpedoes, shouting, Hurrah for our kingdom. We have faith in these things more than in thee, our Creator. Thus I led them away from thee. Their eyes I turned down in the way of death. By the might of my armies I put away righteousness. I covered the earth over with drunkards and widows and orphans. To beggary I reduced them, but I whetted their pride by saying, Behold, what great standing armies we have. To the man that said, there shall come a time of peace when war shall be no more forever, I mocked and said, thou fool. I know the counts against me, O Father. I cannot hide my iniquity from thy sight. I have said war was a necessary evil to prevent a too populous world. I turned my back toward the wide, unsettled regions of the earth. With this falsehood in my mouth, I stood up before thee. Yea, I cried out as if for the righteous, saying, I war for righteousness and for the protection of the weak. In the destruction of my brethren, I stood as a murderer, pleading this excuse. Stubbornly, I persisted in not seeing justice on the other side, whilst I cut down whom thou hast created alive. Above the works of thy hand, I raised myself up as a pruning knife in thy vineyard. Yea, more than this, I persuaded my sons and daughters to war for me was to war for our Father in heaven. By such blasphemy, I led them into ruin. Wow. And after such is reference number 6. And 6 at the bottom says my. So in a previous version, instead of saying by such blasphemy, it was by my blasphemy. By such blasphemy, I led them into ruin. And when the battle was over for a day, I cried out, behold the glory of them that were slain for the honor of their country. Thus have I added crime to crime before thee, Jehovah, thus destroyed thy beautiful creation. Verily, have I not one word of justification of my deeds before thee? Oh, that I had remained faithful with thee, Jehovah. But I invented gods unto the glory of the evil one. In one place I called out to my sons and daughters, saying, be ye Brahmins. Brahma saveth whosoever professeth his name. In another place I said, be ye Buddhists. Buddha saveth whoever calleth on his name. In another place I said, be ye Christians. Christ saveth whosoever calleth on his name. In another place I said, be ye Mohammedans. Whosoever saith, but there is one God and one Muhammad is his prophet. Hold on. Let me read that last part. In another place, I said, be ye Mohammedans. Whosoever saith, there is but one God, and Muhammad is his prophet, shall have indulgence without sin. Thus have I divided the earth, O Jehovah, into 4 great idolatries have I founded them, and into their hands put all manner of weapons and destruction. And they are become more terrible against one another than are the beasts of the forest. Wow. All right, this is good the second time around. Now I'm reading a little bit with clearer sight. At first, I'm like, this is the first time I got a taste, except for in the beginning, you know, going over Brahma and all that stuff. But learning that the actual beast is the 4 major religions, right? Buddhism, Brahmanism, Mohammedanism, and Christianity. That is the great beast, right? I'm going to read 31 again. Thus have I divided the earth, O Jehovah, into 4 great idolatries have I founded them, and into their hands put all manner of weapons of destruction, and they are become more terrible against one another than are the beasts of the forest. Oh, that I could put away these great iniquities which I raised up as everlasting torments to the earth. Verily, there is no salvation in any of these. Their people are forever destroying one another. They quarrel and kill for their respective religions, setting aside thy commandment, thou shalt not kill. They love their own nation and hate all others. They set aside thy commandment, love thy neighbor as thyself, right? Because you won't dare catch Christians mingling with those children of Muhammad, right? Oh, no, blast. Like, it's crazy. And the Christians think they so right. Like, keep yourself separated from such foolery. Only if you knew that you sounded like foolery. Their people are forever destroying one another. They quarrel and kill for their respective religions, setting aside thy commandment, thou shalt not kill. They love their own nation and hate all others. They set aside thy commandment, love thy neighbor as thyself. They preach and pray in sufficient truth, but not one of these people practiceth peace, love, and virtue in any degree commensurate with their understanding. These religions have not saved from sin any nation or city on the whole earth. In vain they have searched for a plan of redemption, a plan that would make the earth a paradise, and life of man a glory unto thee, and a joy unto himself. But alas, the two extremes, riches and poverty, have made the prospect of a millennium a thing of mockery. For one man that is rich, there are 1,000 poor, and their interests are an interminable conflict with one another. Labor crieth out in pain, but capital smiteth him with a heartless blow. Nation is against nation, king against king, merchant against merchant, consumer against producer, yea, man against man, and all these things upon the earth. Because the state is rotten, the politician feedeth thereon. Because society is rotten, and the lawyer and the court have riches and sumptuous feasts. Because the flesh of my people is rotten, the physician findeth a harvest of comfort. Now, O Jehovah, I come to thee. Thou holdest the secret of peace and harmony and goodwill amongst mortals. Give me of thy light, O Father. Show me the way of proceeding, that war and crime and poverty may come to an end. Open thou the way of peace and love and virtue and truth, that thy children may rejoice in their lives and glorify thee and thy works forever. Such is the voice of man, O Jehovah. In all the nations of the earth, this voice riseth up to thee. As thou spakest to Zarathustra and to Abraham and Moses, leading them forth out of darkness, O speak thou, Jehovah. Man hath faith in thee only. Thou alone wast sufficient in the olden time. Today thou alone art sufficient unto thy own creations. Speak thou, O Jehovah. That was good. Where we at? 21 minutes. We can get into a little bit of Book of Jehovah. What is y'all saying over here, y'all? Abigail, shalom, shalom. Key, shalom, shalom. Elijah, bless up. Joyful Cosmo, shalom. Ali, shalom. I know, it's been a while, brother. Prince, shalom, shalom. Okay, y'all. So let's read a little bit of the Book of Jehovah. We're at 22 minutes. We got 8 minutes, so we're going to get into it a little bit. Okay, Book of Jehovah on page 6. And under it, there's a little paragraph wherein is revealed the three great worlds, corpore, atmosphere, and ethera. As in all other Bibles, it is revealed that this world was created. So in this Bible, it is revealed how the Creator created it. As other Bibles have proclaimed heavens for the spirits of the dead, behold, this Bible revealeth where these heavens are, and the manner and glory and work that the spirits of the dead enjoy, whereby wisdom, power, love, and glory of the Almighty are magnified for the understanding of man. And after understanding of man is reference number 1, and 1 at the bottom says, this paragraph does not appear in the 1882 edition. Okay. And so under this little paragraph, it is some panic writing. I'll show you real quick. This right here. It's the first language of man. It's called the panic language, right? Panic, like P-A-N-I-C, which is labeled that because it comes out of Pan, the continent of Pan, which has for a very long time been sunken, right? Okay, so under this, it says, apology. The universe is full, all things are members. Speech they have, bid them speak. The recorder of their words be thou. Such is panic, or earth language, the first language. What saith the bird, the beast, the stars, the sun? All, it is their souls speaking. The soul, hear thou, and repeat it. The light leadeth thee to origin. And after origin is reference number 2, and 2 says, this apology does not appear in the 1882 edition. Okay, so we're in the Book of Jehovah, y'all, chapter 6, and we're about to read chapter 1. So after chapter 1 is reference letter A. So let's remember the letter references are at the end of the current book. So let's run to the end of it real quick. The end of the Book of Jehovah can be found on page 13. And A says, see Book of Safa, chapter Mhawk, verse 21. See also Book of Ben for signs and symbols. The student will find that becoming familiar with both books, Ben and Safa, will enable him the better to understand the terms and the historical part of this great work. Had I had the arrangement of the books in my own way, I would have placed these books of the latter part antecedent to the history, 1882 edition. Okay, so M. Hock. Let's go to sci-fi real quick. Page 558. What is it? Verse what? Verse 21. Verse 21 is on page 559. And it says, I. And remember, I here, I represents initiate. As the wind whispereth E in the leaves, and uttereth O in the ocean's surge, and in the thunder above, and I in the winter's shrill whistle, so came the name Eoah, which hath becometh Jehovah, and Eloah, and Elohim, and Winohim. That's the name that the Creator is referred to, right? So let's go back, page 6, chapter 1, verse 1. All was, all is, all ever shall be. The all spake, and motion was, and is, and ever shall be. And being positive, he called he and him. The all motion was his speech. He said, I am. And he comprehended all things, the seen and the unseen. Nor is there aught in all the universe but what is part of him. He said, I am the soul of all, and the all that is seen is of my person and my body. By virtue of my presence, all things are. By virtue of my presence is life. By virtue of my presence are the living brought forth into life. I am the quickener, the mover, the creator, the destroyer. I am first and last. Of two apparent entities, I am. Nevertheless, I am but one. These entities are unseen, which is potent, and the seen, which is of itself impotent and called corporeal. With these two entities, and likeness thereby of myself, made I all the living. For as the life is the potent part, so is the corporal part the impotent part. Chief over all that live on the earth, I made man. Male and female made I them. And that man might distinguish me, I commanded him to give me a name. By virtue of my presence commanded I him. And man named me, not after anything in heaven or on the earth. In obedience to my will, named he me after the sounds of the wind uttered, and he said E-O-E, which is now pronounced Jehovah, and is thus written with the circle, the cross, and the leaf in the middle. The same symbol that is on the front of Big Blue, right? That's the symbol of Jehovah, according to this. Okay, where we at? 28 minutes. Let's read one more chapter, chapter 2. Chapter 2, Jehovah said, by virtue of my presence created I the seen and the unseen worlds, and I commanded man to name them, and man named these seen worlds corpore, and the unseen world S, and the inhabitants of corpore man named corporeans. And man named the seen worlds corpore after name is reference number 3, and it's called. And the same thing after man named corporeans is reference number 4, or called it. So he called it corporal and he called it S. Okay. But the inhabitants of S, he called sometimes Esian or Esians, and sometimes spirits, and sometimes angels. Jehovah said, I created the earth and fashioned it and placed it in the firmament, and my presence brought man forth a living being. The corporal body gave I him that he might learn corporal things, and death I made that he might rise in the firmament and inherit my ethereal worlds. Right? So death is simply just a birth into real life. And it's funny because we watched Souls again yesterday for the first time in a while since it first came out. You know the movie Souls? Jamie Foxx plays the voice of the piano guy. that died. But what's funny, this time watching it around, the first time I saw it was when we was reading the Legends of the Jews, right? And there's a whole chapter in there that we read shortly before they released the trailer of Souls, because Souls hadn't come out yet, but we had just read it within a few days. For the very first time, they showed the trailer of Souls, the Disney Pixar movie. And I was like, hold on a minute. If y'all go back to when it first came out, it's probably been like 2 years now, right? Yeah, about 2 years now. And go back, find a title where it says Souls, or Pixar Disney movie, something like that. I'm like, yo, somebody has read like Legends of the Jews, because the way they did it, it was almost like word for word what we found in the Legends of the Jews. I said, this is amazing. But there's so much spiritual truth in that. I talk about it because I see it all over the place, right? But it's amazing how even in Souls, though, when he was trying to get back into his body, every time he tried to, even when he tried to jump with the new souls that was coming, I was like, I like how they, if you're paying attention, they're showing you there's like no reincarnation, right? Because every time he tried to go back into his body or he was like, well, I got to get back to Earth, because he had just got his lifetime gig, but he died while he was so excited about it, trying to tell everybody, and he fell down a manhole and died, right? And so he was pissed because he died on the day he got his dream job and he never had a chance to do it. So now he's about to go into the great beyond. And he realized, like, no, I ain't supposed to be going yet. So he turned around and he run into everybody that just died, running past all these blue souls, which is funny because it made me think about the book. It's interesting how the spirit guide talks about some of these, they call it, people who are doing like exorcisms and stuff and looking for spirits activity. They said they see like these little blue orbs. So even some of those things, some new things started sticking out while I was watching it. So instead of going back to his body where he came from, when he was running, when he finally got through that little force field, he went to the great before, right? Where all the new souls who were about to come to Earth, he was like, okay, well, maybe I can get back there this way. But even there, you could tell that his spirit had already been developed. He'd come from Earth already. And everybody there had to go to Earth to get the lessons of Earth before they could move ahead to the next place, which is called the Great Beyond, right? So you got the Great Before, Earth, where you get your Earth badge. You got to get that life experience out. When I watched it the first time, I never paid attention to the words they use until last night when we were watching it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't catch any of this the first time I watched it. But anyway, so now he's there and there's like, oh, the mentors need to go over there, which I thought about the Ashars, Asaphs and stuff. I was like, yo, they're like using all these terms we're learning about now in Oahspe. And so that was the only way that he could, well, really, if y'all ain't seen it, let me stop. Y'all just go watch it. We'll talk about it later. Let me keep going because I'm at 33 minutes. Let me finish this little chapter. Go watch Souls, y'all. It's on, if you got Disney Plus, they got it there. I'm sure you can go to Amazon and watch it there too. Okay, listen. Verse 2, page 7. Jehovah said, I created the earth and fashioned it and placed it in the firmament, and by my presence brought man forth a living being. The corporal body gave I him that he might learn corporal things, and death I made that he might rise in the firmament and inherit my ethereal worlds. To S I gave dominion over corporal. With S I filled all place in the firmament. But corporal I made into earths and moons and stars and suns. Beyond number made I them, and I caused them to float in the places I allotted to them. S I divided into 2 parts, and I commanded man to name them, and he named one Etheria and the other Atmosphere. And after named up here is reference number 5, and 5 at the bottom says called, named or called. Yeah, go watch it, Prince. Everybody keep telling you to watch Soul. Go watch it. I'm telling you now. Go watch Soul. Yes, it's Souls. Yes, thank you. Shebrew, Souls. No, is it Soul or Souls? Anyway, it's the black guy. It's going to be a picture of a black guy, a cat. He played the piano. Go watch it. It's a Disney Pixar movie. It's great. I'll post the preview in a community section, all that stuff shortly, just in case y'all can't find it. You should be able to just Put in Souls, Disney, Jamie Foxx. It'll come up. Okay. Verse 4. As I divided into two parts, and I commanded man to name them, and he named one Ethera and the other Atmosphere. These are the three kinds of worlds I created, but I gave different densities to atmospherian worlds and different densities to Etherian worlds. For the substance of my Etherian worlds, I created Eth, the most rarefied. Out of Eth made I them, and I made Eth the most subtle of all created things, and gave to it power and place, not only by itself, but also power to penetrate and exist within all things, even in the midst of the corporal worlds. And to Eth I gave dominion over both atmosphere, and corpore, or our spirit, residing here in the earth and residing inside of our flesh. It has ultimate rule, right? Let it rule and get your flesh out of the ruling seat, right? Because if you let that rule, you'll grow in leaps and bounds spiritually. I kid you not. Test it, right? Verse 6. In the all highest places created I the Etherian worlds, and I fashioned them of all shapes and sizes, and similar to my corporal worlds. But I made the Etherian worlds inhabitable, both within and without, and with entrances and exits, and arches and curves, thousands of miles high and wide, and overruled I them with perfect mechanism. And after perfect is reference number 6, and at the bottom it says all perfect, ALL, referring to the creator, all perfect like he is, right? But I made the Etherian worlds inhabitable, both within and without, with entrances and exits, and arches and curves, thousands of miles high and wide, and overruled I them with perfect mechanism, and in colors and movable chasms and mountains in endless change and brilliancy. To them I gave motions and orbits and courses of their own, independent made I them, and above all over other worlds in potency and majesty. Neither created I one Etherian world like another in size or density or in component parts, but every one differing from another, and with a glory matchless, each in its own way. Atmospherian worlds I also created in the firmament, and I gave them places and orbits and courses for themselves. But atmospherian worlds I created shapeless and void of fixed form, but they are in process of condensation or dissolution, being intermediate in condition betwixt my Etherian and my corporal worlds. Of 3 degrees of density created I them, and I commanded man to name them, and one he called Aji, A''Ji, and one Ga, and one Nebula. So after Aji is reference letter B. So hop over to page 13 real quick, and B says, C played Aji, Ga, inconsistency at end of the glossary. So let me flip to the end of the glossary real quick. Oh, okay. On page 790, I remember reading this. Okay. Page 790 says, the Aji, Ga, inconsistency in Oahspe. In Book of Safa, chapter Osiris, verse 56, in the description of plate 63, Samoan, Aji is defined as semi-dark. Both editions also define Ga as semi-light. Later in verse 57, however, there is a discrepancy between the 1882 and 1891 editions as noted in the footnotes. The 1882 edition reads, thus ether, the most rarefied place, Ga, the second place, less rarefied, Aji, the third place, nebulous places in the firmament. The 1891 edition reads, Aji, the second place, less rarefied, Ga, the third place, which is just the opposite. To further confuse the issue, the latter part of that verse in both editions reads, "As out of the ether I make Ag, so out of Ga make I corpore." Nowhere else in the text can one find any clear comparison between the two for clarification. Viewing the 3 plates 26, Ga 28, the earth, and Ag, and 29, hierarchy or nebula, one might conclude that subjectively, Ag rather than Ga looks more like nebula. Ag and nebula are similarly darkened. Also, viewing plate 63, Samoan, identical in both editions, one sees that Dang, Dan or light, is an open book. Hak, darkness, is a box with an X. Ag is similar to Hak, but the box is open at the bottom. Okay. All right, so go back up with identical in both editions. One sees that Dang, Dan or light, is an open box. So the open box, if you have it, you can see it. Okay, so it's like 2 horizontal lines, and there's a line vertical to the left and a line vertical to the right that shows you a box, right? That's an open box. And then Hak or darkness is a box with an X. So it's like a square, but more like rectangle with the X going through it. That represents Hak. Ag is similar to Hak, but the box is open at the bottom. So you got the same box with the X in the middle, but the bottom line that connects the 2 vertical lines is not there. So it's like an upside down U with the X going in it, right? While Ga contains only a slash inside the box. So you got the upside down U and 1 slash of the X, right? Okay. While Ga contains only a slash inside the box, being closer in appearance to Dang. Finally, Book of Cosmogony, chapter 8, verse 1 reads, F stands as 1, Ga as 2, Ag as 3, and corpore as 4. For the above reasons, the editors believe that the 1882 edition is correct, with Ga being less dense than Ag. One might speculate that when the editing for the 1891 edition was conducted, perhaps in attempting to reconcile the conflicting statements within verse 57, the editor should have altered the latter part of the verse to coincide with the first rather than the other way around. That would have made the verse clearly consistent with the other references noted above. Okay, let's go back to page 7 and finish these last couple verses. Verse 9. But all of them are composed of the same substances, being like the earth but rarefied. Nor is there on the earth or in it one thing, even iron or lead or gold or water or oil or stones, but the same things are in my atmospherian worlds. As I have given light to the earth, so have I given light to many of them. And all such have I commanded man to call comets. Comets like in the constellation Comets, comets. And even so named he them. And I also created atmosphere around about my corporal worlds. Together made I them. All right, and that is where we're going to pause at. We like 15 minutes over now, right? Sometimes I should just stick with my first mind. Okay. All right, so let's pause here. Book. I got to make another playlist. Because the way I had it set out, we was only going to read the voice of man. But I figured we had 8 minutes to play with. Now I'm 15 minutes over. Okay. All right, so that was that. That was the voice of man and the first 2 chapters of the book of Jehovah. All right, y'all, so let's go to the field guide of the spirit world. Field guide to the spirit world. All right, y'all. Now we pause on page 34. Yes. Yes, thank you, Global Purpose. The movie Soul, thank you, Soul, S-O-U-L, is animated, right? All right, so we paused at the end of this end of this, the scripture that they gave from the book of Apollo and the book of Ben. But I said I was going to go back to page 34 to the last paragraph at the bottom where it says, but ghosts and poltergeists. So go back there. Okay. Page 34, when the first chapter is still called Spirit at Large. But ghosts and poltergeists seem to have a life of their own, to somehow drift into almost physical existence. Exactly how this is done has excited the curiosity of many investigators. It is Wonder Epps Sargent, 1876, page 36, with the aid of some occult alchemy unexplainable to material senses. Perhaps, he thought, spirits have power to extract it. Let me start over. I'm getting tongue-tied. Perhaps, he thought, spirits have the power to extract elements from their surroundings wherewith they are enabled to present themselves in an exact resemblance to their earth body, together with its clothing and peculiarities. And after clothing, there's an asterisk. And at the bottom, the asterisk says, as Oahspe has it, spirits learn how to sargas, or make manifest, clothing and how to create light and darkness in the college of creation according to the 50th deviant law. Go back up. Before Henry Steele Olcott jump-started the Theosophy movement with Madame Helene Blavatsky, he had earned a fine reputation as a government investigator. So there's a cross after Madame Helena Blavatsky's last name, and at the bottom that cross says, Blavatsky also traveled up to the Eddies where the spirits spoke to her in Russian. Okay, go back up. Then, after eyewitnessing the materialization at the Eddy household in Vermont, he asked how those spirit forms, which he saw with his own eyes, could be explained. We can conceive, he said, quote, we can conceive of the body being made by a supreme effort of the spirits from the invisible atoms of the atmosphere, end quote. On one occasion, quote, 10 spirits appeared to us, among them a lady who had only died the Friday previous. Her relative sat beside me and was dreadfully agitated at the thought that one whom she had seen buried only a few days before, emphasis added on only a few days before, should so soon have burst the crements of the grave, end quote. Poor woman. Alcott, 1972, page 309, 326 to 327. Quote, I have given power to spirits of the newly dead, emphasis added on the newly dead, to clothe themselves from the atmosphere with corporal semblances of flesh and blood. When thou hast quit the corporal body, behold, thy spirit will be free. Thou shalt fashion from the surroundings thine own form, hands and arms and feet and legs perfectly, end quote. And that comes from Oahspe, Book of Apollo, chapter 10, verse 12, and Book of Ben, chapter 4, verse 10 to 11. This reminds me of something of a friend who comes in and out. When her first husband had died many years ago, I want to say probably about 2006, maybe 2006. But anyway, right after he first died, she said that she saw him. Like she literally saw him. But we all knew he had passed away. I'm like, really? Like his spirit? She said it was like he was standing right there looking at me. She said, Pam, I was not asleep. And I called his name and I looked at him and then he faded away. She said, but I wasn't asleep. I thought I was asleep. Maybe I was dreaming. I don't know. She said, but I saw him, but this made me think about that. Listen. Let me just read that again. I have given power to spirits of the newly dead, emphasis added on the newly dead, to clothe themselves from the from the atmosphere with corporal semblances of flesh and blood. When thou hast quit the corporal body, behold, thy spirit will be free. Thou shalt fashion from the surroundings thine own form, hands and arms and feet and legs perfectly. End quote. Oahspe, Book of Apollo, chapter 10, verse 12, and Book of Ben, chapter 4, verses 10 through 11. Occultists might call this phenomenon the condensation of etheric energy. It is described in the Book of Thor, chapter 4, verse 12, as a process in which Etherians gather up the atomic elements, propelling them forth, aggregating them from a mite. But spirits of a lower order can only gather up whatever energy is available, like parasites that feed off the electrical system. This is what psychic investigator Paul Eno, 2006, page 57 through 58, discovered after looking into several poltergeist cases. In one home, disturbed by shadow figures, bed shaking, foul smells, and other anomalies, Eno asked the mother, "What has your electric bill been like lately?" She replied, "Funny you should bring that up. Since this crap started, the bill's been sky high, and for no reason," right? Because the entities there, they drawing whatever there is in that atmosphere, the electrical force and stuff, they're using that. Just like we're able to do once we begin to meditate, we begin to kind of focus and study these things, you can literally draw like the unseen elements into your person to do things, right? Let me show you this picture. Figure 1.1 and 1.2, Eddie Homestead and Circle Room. As I become a little more proficient in some of those things, I might show y'all some of that, or just at least explain what's happening, right? I just already know somebody gonna say, "I knew it, she was a witch." I'm like, bruh, come on. Look. That's the picture, right? So this next portion, y'all see it says Sargus. Listen, look. Ollie, look. Some people, I'm like, listen, before y'all start labeling me stuff, just go back and just watch. Just go all the way back to the beginning. Even go back to my Jesus Christ videos, right? Watch my Jesus Christ videos all the way up to today and watch the process. All right, page 37, Sargus, figure 1.3, sign of Sargus. So in this, you will see this in Oahspe. That's the sign of Sargus, right? An ancient word for a materializing angel is Sargus. Sargus, in fact, is either an apparition, and in parentheses it has materialized angel, or a corporean mortal medium in whose presence angels can take on the semblance of mortal forms and be seen. The Sargus uses vortexia for manifestations, and after vortexia, it's an asterisk, and down at the bottom it says, vortexia is the atmospheric discharge originating in the Earth's vortex, i.e. in its magnetic field, right? So if y'all familiar with even just a little bit of science or just paid attention in science, this would not seem so far-fetched because you did even little smaller experiments on the lower levels in school with some of this stuff, right? Well, y'all ain't get as far as Sargus, right? You got to get into the spiritual school to learn that. But at least here in corporal, where you understand, like, yes, that is a thing, right? At least learn everything for this level so you can take those same rules and apply it in the unseen realm, and you can actually begin to use it and test things with your body and spiritually, right? There's some people on YouTube that's doing this stuff, right? But they get pushed in the section with a cult. Some of them, I leave it alone. Listen. When Sargus uses vortexia for the Sargus uses vortexia for manifestations. When a prophet hath attained to discharge vortexia so as to make raps at will, he is also subject to the presence of people from the unseen worlds. And these people, spirits or angels, use this vortexia for a foundation for Sargus. Oahspe, Book of Cosmogony and Prophecy, chapter 11, verse 12. A spirit does not take its bulk with it, or its body. Its body is representing its bulk, right? A spirit does not take its bulk with it, but fashions a body from its surroundings when it arrives at its destination. It may be only a partial materialization depending on the skill and the advancement of the angel. Just so, the people from the other world at the Eddies explained that such synthesis is not easy. The art of materialization, or sargas, is difficult, and some of the spirits can only make hands, unable to synthesize a complete form. And we've seen this in the book of Daniel. Many tekel of parson, right? They're like, gee, you could only manifest a hand. Like when I go through and read the scriptures now, I see some of this stuff, I'm like, oh, they sargas, and he must not have been strong enough or he wasn't too learned to be able to materialize a whole body. He just materialized his hand, right? What page? We're on page 37. Spirit at Large, chapter 1, the sargas page with the sargas symbol at the top. Okay. And we are on the second paragraph at the bottom. Occultists have also accounted for materializations by positing a chemist in a spirit world who withdraws certain ingredients from the medium and those present. Finley, 1931. Others describe the process in terms of unseen ducts leading from our bodies and carrying a vital substance drawn from the spine and nerve centers principally. Fodor, 1966, page 208. Yet others claim that plain old excess energy can be absorbed from people or even animals to make a spirit form. As an indication of how this extra energy may be accumulated, Reverend Morey, 1988, page 62, describes a large and lively dance party he attended. A reunion, actually, that was so invigorating he could not fall asleep that night. Spirits, said he, accumulate psychic energy in very much the same way as I did at the reunion. When they are in the presence of such energy, they can draw upon it and produce poltergeist activities for a more useful purpose. I've heard pastors say this, right? Depending on the atmosphere of the congregation and how lively they are, they'll be able to flow better or not flow so smoothly. They're doing it. A lot of them ignorantly, a lot of them ignorantly are drawing on that energy, but they can explain it in words, but they can't really tell you the scientific principles that's happening behind the scenes on why that happens, right? Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I'll read this again. As an indication of how this extra energy may be accumulated, Reverend Morey, 1988, page 62, describes a large and lively dance party he attended, a reunion actually, that was so invigorating he could not fall asleep that night. Spirits, said he, accumulate psychic energy in very much the same way as I did at the reunion. When they are in the presence of such energy, they can draw upon it to produce poltergeist activities for a more useful purpose. Even the charged energy of a druge high can activate a nearby spirit. Gore Vital recalled a vivid image of his lost love Jimmy that came back to him while I was smoking ganja in Kathmandu. Jimmy materialized beside me on the bed. He was completely present. When Gore touched him, Jimmy opened his eyes and smiled. He was, for an instant, real, but only for an instant. Vital, 1996, page 35. Okay, we are right here at the hour mark. 1 second. It starts at what? 8:45? It starts at 9. We got to be there. 8:45. Take us 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, we need to.
Give me a couple minutes. We good. It's 7:17, so take us 30 minutes. We leave at 7:30. We'll be there. But we're gonna have a whole lot of time. Okay. Okay, so give me a few minutes. Let me read this first.
Oh my God, that man.
It's like first 2 pages of Flight of the Soul. And then we absolutely have to pause. All right, y'all. Page 39.
When you do the thing,
I know, I already know. I
drink
spent,
nothing
yeah,
after.
I figured that because it opens up all your senses. My son has this stuff that I tried yesterday. It's called Think Drops, but in it it's like peppermint oil. I forget. It's some herbs and stuff, but
Just highly concentrated things. There's an herb in there. First,
you ain't got to explain it all. I'll post the link and stuff. But yeah, it's like a natural herb that helps with the body and clear up mental fogginess and all this stuff, right? But anyway, you take a dropper full at the back. It tastes like peppermint. It's mostly like peppermint. It's like peppermint. I forget.
It's
peppermint
jackfruit, no.
Peppermint.
Monk fruit, and there's coconut oil with this other
Ashwagandha.
herb. Yeah, ashwagandha.
Yeah. And it
Everything else
literally
is just there to wake your mind up, but that mint is the
mint. I was like, don't give me no whole dropper full. It said take a dropper full. I got like, give me like half a dropper full, right? Because it said it got ashwagandha in it. I don't want nothing interfering with my spiritual growth. I don't want no extra help. Let me just do it on my own. But like, if you have any kind of sinuses, and my brother had been a little bit under the weather, so he brought it out for him. And because he was stuffy and stuff, he gave him a dropper full, and he took a deep breath, and he was like, whoo! Right? He said, oh my gosh. He said, all of my everything just opened up. I'm thinking to myself, y'all doing the most. It ain't that powerful. You know? So he was like, oh my gosh. And so he said, he started doing like that. He said, I feel like my breath is cold, but it feels warm. And so he explained all of what just happened and how he was groggy. And I saw him when he got out of the car and how he just perked right up. I was like, let me see the bottle. Let me read that. I'm like, okay. But I was like, ooh, that's some powerful peppermint. I was like, I know the effects of peppermint, coconut oil. Okay. I don't know. Let me get a half a dropper full. If the whole dropper full is anything like the half dropper full I'm like, oh my gosh, I see how it works immediately. The peppermint, the cooling mist, it literally goes through. If anything is clogging, it literally just shoots like everything out, like everything. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never breathed this deeply in my life, right? And you could feel it. It felt like the breaths were coming from deep within my soul. I'm like, who would have known could ever breathe this deep? And then I started doing it because it felt cool. My insides felt cool with the peppermint, clearly, right? Y'all know how peppermint does, but it was like 100 times amplified. And I could literally feel it, literally. When I say all up and down here, all up and down my chakra line, I felt it literally from the root all the way to the crown. I'm like, we were outside. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But any kind of fogginess or anything, it did like just like that, like within seconds. And it lasted like that coolness. That probably lasted for about, I'd say about 30 minutes. Because me and my husband, we left and we had to go to the store and stuff. I'm like, wow. I'm like, man. I'm like, the effects of this is lasting. I'm like, wait. I'm like, I got to do some more research into that stuff. Yeah, it's called, you got it in your pocket? It's upstairs.
Think Drops.
It's literally called Think. Go get it. While I get done reading this. And I pulled up the link yesterday when I started researching it more. I'm going to post it to you. But if you look up Think Drops, and they got 4 different versions of it, right? I was like, I have to order some of this today. Okay, look. Flight of the Soul. Let's take a couple minutes and read some of this, right? Because this is a really, really good chapter. Especially if you know people who are actually being oppressed, possessed, obsessed, whatever. If you think they're in a sunken place, this really brings out a lot about it and how it happens through traumas and a lot of different things, right? Flight of the Soul, page 39. When psychologists chalk up enigmatic and inexplicable behavior like ESP or MPD to the mechanisms of the unconscious or subconscious mind, they're not saying much. A dead end, it is virtually the same as saying we just don't know. serving as the proverbial rug under which countless mysteries may be swept. The so-called unconscious represents not so much the hidden place of the soul as the ignorance of analysts, the same specialists to whom we turn to for an understanding of the mind, the same specialists who maintain the Cold War between materialism and spiritualism. Long overdue for the wrecking ball, Freud's overrated unconscious explains nothing. It's not really because the experts are stumped. No, it's because they are weary, even fearful of the alternative, which is, of course, altered states of consciousness, ACS. Open that door, and out comes a host of hobgoblins from the unseen world, all the creatures of the mind that materialist science would rather ignore or blame on an anomaly, hallucination, irrationalism, overactive imagination, or any other throwaway soundbite. Yet the door has already been opened 50 years ago. A category of ACS joined the jargon, if only parenthetically, yet covering a raft of deviant or dissociative mental states, many of which significantly belong to the paranormal spectrum. And a lot of people that experience this, when they don't want to deal with it, they say build a house and put them over there. They call it insane asylums, the crazy house, the nut house. Them folk gonna come get you, right? Nene, shalom, Trina, hey girl, hey. Listen. And so when they don't want to deal with this, or they don't know how, like the people who can deal with this the best at this point is either exorcists or psychologists, right? And psychologists who have had training in NDEs, near-death experiences, and otherworldly entities and things like that, they're the ones that most, with the exception of those of us who grow spiritually and understand these things, they're the ones most capable of helping people deal with some of these things and actually help them get free, right? Otherwise, it's just like, oh, they have autism, or they have they just all of these other things, all these names that they give it, when they don't realize that there's another spirit or multiple spirits or legions of spirits overshadowing the native soul. They done put that native soul in abeyance, or we call it today the sunken place, right? They just don't, we don't want to deal with it, or we gonna have to let people know that all this stuff is true and this is not just entertainment, right? But they putting all the truth out there and making people think that other people's crazy that's talking about it. Listen. Yet the door has already been opened 50 years ago. The category of ASC joined the jargon, if only parenthetically, yet covering a raft of deviant or dissociative mental states, many of which significantly belong to the paranormal spectrum. ACSs, or altered states of consciousness, then would include a great range of conditions, such as dreaming, daydreaming, fantasizing, trance, meditative or ecstatic states, NDEs or OBEs, or other else-awareness, and NDEs is near-death experiences, and OBEs is out-of-body experiences, right? Clearly, all of us here know that these things exist, right? Because they happen to us, either periodically or frequently for some of us, right? The next section is blackouts and fugue, staring spells, drowsy states, brown study or reverie, lost in thought, hypnotic states, drugged and drunken states, shocked or overstimulated states. And after overstimulated states, there's an asterisk. And down at the bottom, the asterisk says, it seems also that acute or chronic understimulation, say locked in the closet by a psychotic caretaker, or even just plain chronic neglect, can breed yet another kind of ASC, the mind deranged by isolation and the reduction of normal sensory input. Example, serial killer Ed Kemper, as a child, was locked up in a dark basement where he saw the devil's face for the first time, right? So by not dealing with some of these things, we induce more states of altered states of consciousness upon these people that already don't really know what's going on with them and why it's happening to them, right? People that we just want to lock them away. We don't want to deal with that. Call the nun, call the priest, call the exorcist. And if you can't do it, they need to go somewhere other than here. We don't want to deal with it. And then you lock them away. And now nobody's there to help them, or they just put in a place where they're constantly drugged because don't nobody want to deal with the issue. That said, I hasten to add that the most distinctive thing about ACS, or altered states of consciousness, the pith of it really is the abeyance of self, abeyance of psyche, flight of the soul, or the soul has taken flight, right? And it's left it open to whatever spirits are roaming about. To illustrate, it has been said that the sociopath, APD, the psychotic, and the victim of possession are virtually immune to any touch of therapy. Why? We must look at the absence of self for the answer. That is what we will do in this chapter. This approach also gives us a handle on the remarkable similarities that exist between multiples, somnambules, narcissists, obsessives, autistics, psychics, sociopaths, and so forth, as discussed in the introduction. While it is standard practice to label these as dissociative states, which is true enough, dissociation takes one step further, boils down to separation from self. This, of course, is what we mean by self in abeyance. And this field, this arena outside of self, turns out to have its own distinctive features, like the tunnel, accounting for the similarities between all these assorted states of altered consciousness. Indeed, they are all the hallmarks of displaced psyche. When the persona begins to break down and ASCs, or altered states of consciousness, takes over, psyche conforms to a new set of realities. No, not inner realities, but stuff that exists in the external unseen. And this is exactly why so much behavior that is abnormal appears to be paranormal. In fact, we might drop the clinical sounding accelerated states of consciousness altogether and replace it with psychologically disturbed. The entire field of human psychology awaits that moment of truth when the psychic faculty leads the way. Hasten the day. Meanwhile, the experts continue to use bland and sterile labels like non-locality of consciousness, safely avoiding the whole matter, most notable the central question of what the other locality is. When we compare notes from those who have been in the tunnel, a common picture emerges. And it gives 4 bullet points about people who go into this dark tunnel or see this dark tunnel, right? The first one is the victim of possession. The girl named Annalise, of whom we will hear more, describes the peculiar sensation of being hurled into a dark pit. Goodman, 1981, page 21. The enlargement of her pupils seemed to vouch for her description. And that's one key telltale sign. If you're in the presence of somebody, you think they acting a little crazy. If their pupils are dilated, I'm going to be like, I'm about to take a trip to Oklahoma. I'll probably be the first one backing out of there, right? At least until I get trained enough how to properly set you free, right? And get whatever spirit that's in rebellion hang around the earth. Get you away from here, because you don't need to be attaching yourself to nobody else. And people that be, let me tell you something, half the people that be trying to perform exorcisms and stuff, and pastors that be trying to cast the devil out of people, end up getting possessed themselves. Because first of all, you are in no spiritual state to be even trying any of this, right? Because whatever's on them gonna hop on you, right? I mean, you see this all the time if you pay attention to it. Listen, hold on. Number 2, trauma. Let me reread one again. 1. The victim of possession, the girl named Annalise, of whom we will hear more, describes the peculiar sensation of being hurled into a dark pit. Goodman, 1981, page 21. The enlargement of her pupils seemed to vouch for her description. Number 2, trauma. The victim of severe burns who stayed in shock for a week remembers escaping into this dark void, just tumbling through space. Keyes, 1981. The third bullet point, the multiple MPD, driven away by pure terror, she finds herself in a place that is still and dark and completely outside of time. Castle and Beechel, 1989, page 235. Similarly, the super multiple Trudy Chase heard the thoughts of another from deep in the tunnel. Chase, 1987, page 104. The serial killer, Arthur Shawcross, tried to describe the moment of crime. It's just like the light was closing into that one spot, a tunnel going dark. I'm in a daze. It's just like something closes in on me. That tunnel, that close space, is the all-purpose metaphor used also by scores of persons to describe the OBE undergone at the point of death. And that was the end of the 4 bullet points. Annalise's enlarged pupils remind us of the criminals whose eyes are described as all black, meaning all pupil completely dilated from spending time in that dark tunnel, like Gwen Graham, nursing home murderess with 2 totally separate personalities, saintly and possessed, entering a spell. Her face turned red and her pupils dilated. Koffel, 1992, pages 336, 64, and 441. Or, like Ted Bundy, while Bundy was in Florida under the alias Chris, a neighbor noticed that he would look real different sometimes. His eyes would become very dark, the pupils huge. Bundy had light eyes, setting off a handsome, intelligent face, but they became dark at times. It was extreme dilation or enlargement of the pupils that darkened his eyes. With Annalise, the hapless German maiden whom the exorcist could not save from her ruinous possessors, it was the same. Father Alt, one of her exorcists, perceived a shadow behind the college girl on one occasion as a predatory spirit approached. I am being molested, she told the priest, who watched her eyes darken and she became absent. Goodman, 1981, page 48. The same thing happens with certain psychoactive drugs like LSD. It is among the keenest clues, those enlarged pupils, but Annalise, whose blue eyes turned black, and Bundy, with his hazel eyes, were not on LSD. Without drugs, spontaneously, their organism fell prey to the dark side of ASC, the perils of the tunnel. Those darkened eyes crop up also in MPD, or multiple personality disorder. Sybil, with 16 alters, went white in the face, and the pupils of her eyes became dilated when Peggy, an alter, took the spot. And when Vicky showed up, another alter, the eyes dilated again. Holy crap, I just thought about something. Huh. Okay. Hold on. Those darkened eyes, I'm sorry, y'all. It's something let me just finish reading. Those darkened eyes crop up also in MPD. Sybil, with 16 alters, went white in the face, and the pupils of her eyes became dilated when Peggy, an alter, took the spot. And when Vicky showed up, another alter, the eyes dilated again. What happened? Sybil asked her therapist. Another fuse? At such times, her pupils were the size of the irises themselves. Dang. Halfway around the world, in the crazed state known to Indonesians and Malaysians as amok, A-M-O-K, or darkened eyes, mata gelap, is the term used to refer to the frenzied individual gone postal, freely acknowledged as a form of spirit possession. It is the same in Haitian possession. The subject becomes completely stiff-limbed and the pupils of the eyes dilate. But there is much more than those dark eyes that alert us to the psyche going elsewhere. I am referring to the stark absence of self. The flight of the soul leaves behind the impression of empty persona, a shell, a void, nobody home. This abeyance is so fundamental, so universal, we encounter it in almost every kind of mental illness, right? So all this, especially now, I ain't saying it's the thing, but it's the talk of the world. We need to look more into mental illness. Mental illness is a real thing in our community. Let's call it a demonic possession. It's the real thing, right? Well, it's not demonic possession, but yeah, they being overtaken by spirits other than theirs, and their personal spirit, their very own spirit is they done checked out for a little while, let somebody else drive the car. Right? Or they done got into the back seat. They literally have gotten into the back seat. And ain't no telling who is behind the wheel. Sybil had 16 altars. 16 people driving her car, driving her by D. Sis, we don't know when you come back. Hey, where's Sybil? I ain't fooling with y'all today. Look, who am I talking to today? We be playing like that with some people. I gotta stop that because now I really got to check. This whole thing just hit me. Like certain people we be playing with, but now I'm like, holy crap. Let me stop playing like this. And I'm going to be paying attention to the eyes. Look, I didn't listen to this book twice, but just reading this out loud, I just had a flash. When I paused a second ago, I had a flash before my face. Okay, where we at? 7:38. Okay, let me finish this. I'm going to read this nobody home chart and a little paragraph under it, and then we're going to pause. Look. Shebrew, right? That anybody with more than 16, we just going to call them Legion. I would put 16 in the category of Legion, right? If it's more than 2, sometimes you bipolar, you split personality. What should I call this one, right? Like, we be playing with people like that because, they attitude switch on and off. But for real, like, we really need to thoroughly check this out and quit playing with people like that. Listen. Table 21. Table 21 is called Nobody Home. I got to change the title for this today. Nobody Home. Okay, table 2.1, nobody home. And it looks like this if you don't have the book. So I'm going to just go through reading this chart. So at the top is condition. This is the subject or the subject. And this is the description of it. So I'm going to just go through each one. Like the first condition is OCD. And the subject is patience. The description, make statements like, I am nothing. I feel like there's nobody inside. The next condition is bulimia. Subject is the patients, and the description are trying to fill an emptiness, right? They're constantly filling themselves with food, like they have a real condition with overeating, right? The next condition is bipolar. The subject is Betsy. I felt like I wasn't really there. Duke and Hockman, 1992, page 84. The next condition is spirit possession. Subject is Jersey. The description would suddenly absent herself. Peck 2005, page 80. And people that suddenly absent themselves, they literally like they go within and like you could be like calling their name like John, like they literally if you know people that like literally like click out. And you have to like keep calling them. That's what you call their absenting themselves. They just go within. And you find it a lot with children who have been abused. at the time that their abuser is abusing them, at some point, if it goes on for a long period of time, the children begin to go into what they call a safe place, to where while the abuse is being done to them, whatever it is, whether they're being beaten or whether they're being molested or whatever, because they can't fight back, they retreat to a place mentally and they go away until the abuse is done. That's what's really called self-in-abeyance. They go away and let the abuse happen because they have nobody to fight for them. They can't fight for themselves. They have no way to stop it. So the best way to protect themselves is to blank themselves out while it's going on, right? And a habit of that over time literally conditions the child for somebody else to come in and take over them in more ways than just the physical, which is why they grow up with a lot of different issues that they have to be delivered from. And it's we can call a lot of different spirits have probably found that child, or whoever it is, could be an adult. They have found a door in to where when they ask themselves, this is my perfect time to step in or walk in. You hear people talking about walk-ins. Other spirits can walk in to your body and begin driving you, right? All right. The next condition is satanic victim. The subject, Michelle. The description, I was all gone, just floated away. M. Smith and Paisder, 1980, page 17. The next condition, mediumship. Subject, undeveloped medium. Description, her mind was in a vacuum state. Scott and Norman, 1985, page 303. The next condition is same mediumship, but developed mediumship and voluntary. The description, my mind seemed blank. Oahspe addendum 908. The next condition is MPD, which is multiple personality disorder. Subject, multiple. Description, like a garage without a car, right? Like you done left your body, or your car is not in the garage, or everybody else gonna come in, right? You done left the door up. The next condition, autism. The subject, autist. Description, I was an invisible non-entity, a gray void. And a lot of times we've seen, now I hope my channel, but sometimes I gotta properly word this. This happens sometimes by no fault of the child. The child could be absolutely normal until they start getting pokes in their arms because the different places that be said that you need this in order to be healthy. So they schedule for a series of these pokes, right? And a lot of times, depending on, I don't even know how it chooses and picks different people, because it happens in all races of people. It maybe has something to do with the genetics, where it then begins to attack the child. Perfectly normal child now has autism, right? And their life is never the same, right? How does this happen? What happens, whatever is in that pokey poke, right, comes in and it infiltrates, and it's not just doing something to the flesh, but it also alters the spirit, right? Okay. I'll read that again. Autism is a condition. Subject is the autist. Description, I was an invisible non-entity, a gray void. Stillman, 2006. The last one on the table is hysteria. Condition, the subject is self. The description, my mind was completely in abeyance. Fortune, 1981, page 15 through 16. All right, I'm going to read this little last paragraph right here, and then we have to stop because I got to get out the door. Okay. The non-person is a constant in criminal psychopathy. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, was called a nondescript person with no real identity. But the key to our analysis can be found in David's own evaluation, in which he significantly paints himself as an empty vacuum, your life void of many things. The unclean spirits will fill the very same void. Klausner, 1981, page 363. This is the vehicle running on empty, self in abeyance. What follows inevitably is the drawing power of a vacuum, filling the void, right? So when you go away, something else has to fill the place, right? Everything has its proper balances here. When you step out of balance, something else has to come back in to bring the balance back, but it throws you in another whole end of the spectrum, right? So just stay in your place. Just get the help you need to stay there. Don't move out of your driver's seat. Quote, it was like I was void of thought, like I left for a little while. End quote. Bobby Joe Long, serial killer. Morrison, 2004, 160, page 167. Okay, we got to pause right here, y'all. Jeremiah's already in the car waiting for me. Okay, so we'll pause right here. Tomorrow, we got a little bit. Tomorrow's the last Saturday. We're going to have a whole lot of time because next Saturday, I gotta, like I said at the beginning, I spoke too soon when I said the weekends times were going to stay the same. Saturdays is going to have to be 6:15 too because my classes start and I have to be on campus and they're only on Saturdays. So I have to be on campus at 8:15 on Saturdays. But so the only day where we can really start at 7:30 is Sunday. And this is going to be for like the next year until I get done. So, but yeah, so Saturdays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we will be doing 6:15 a.m. to 7:15, give or take a few minutes over the time, depending on what I got going on that morning and how much time I can play with, right? But yeah, and then it's just gonna be Sundays at 7:30. So y'all, this page number, it's page 43. Okay. Tomorrow I will see y'all back here bright and early. 7:30 tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last 7:30 day. Okay. All right. So, and also, listen, somebody brought up daylight saving time a few days ago. And apparently they did away with daylight savings time, but only a couple states have completely, yes, we got rid of it. There's still a lot of states, including the state of Virginia, that hasn't necessarily signed say, yes, we're doing away with daylight savings time. So for the states that have not already agreed to completely doing away with daylight savings time, it happens for those states. The time is going to go back an hour. So you gain an hour tonight. All right. So just if you got Apple phone or whatever, I'm not sure about Android. I'm sure it probably updates the time, but I know Apple is going to automatically update the time. So just be mindful of that in the morning. So yeah. All right. So with that being said, beautiful people, it is Friday, November the 4th, 2022, day 254 of year 4 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets. Another 4-year consecutive day count, day 1273. Today in Oahspe, we read the chapter, The Voice of Man, and we started in the book of Jehovah. That was pages 3 to page 7. And then the Field Guide to the Spirit World. We finished reading the first chapter, Spirit at Large, on page 34, and we ended in the second chapter, Flight of the Soul, on page 43. So we'll pick this back up with page 44 tomorrow, and we'll get a little bit more in. We may not finish this tomorrow, but we're going to get a good bit of it in. All right. So if y'all want to read ahead, go ahead. If you got it on Audible, go on and listen to it. Right. I didn't listen to it twice back to back, and it is so good. This is definitely one you need to keep and refer to often, especially in this time of spiritual explosion and people waking up and realizing, oh my gosh, I'm a spirit. Right? All right, y'all. So with that being said, what was my, hold on. I got it. Hold on. Oh, I know what it was. I was trying to remember my thing. Father, we thank you. Hold on. Your school of education is absolutely the best. I put it in different words because I wrote it down, but that's all I remember is his school is absolutely amazing, especially once you get into the spiritual school and the revealing of all these things and things that we're learning now. So with that being said, beautiful people, thank y'all for coming out. I think there's a few people that came in that I missed, like Animalistic Nature. Shalom, shalom. Let's see, somebody else. I think somebody else came in that I missed. Uncle JB. Shalom, shalom. All right, y'all. That's it. I am out of here. I will cause my cow. Shalom, shalom. I'll see y'all back here tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Boost. And I post that link to Soul and something else I see it. I get it up. All right. Love y'all. Bye.